Welcome to Africa A to Z, a bonus episode. This is a bonus, a little short, little side dish for episode 2. Because I didn't want to go too deep off into the woods of enslavement. But I did want to touch on it because it did happen. In 1441, 12 captive Africans were trafficked from Cabo Branco in modern-day Mauritania to Portugal. Cabo Branco is Portuguese for White Cape. Their names were not recorded, but they were likely to be Amazigh people, Berber peoples. They were captured in the name of Henry the Navigator. You remember Henry from world history. These were the first recorded trafficked Africans, captured and enslaved and shipped out of Africa in 1441, shipped to Portugal. In the early 1500s, Spain started having Africans trafficked to their colonies in the Caribbean and South America. In 1619, the White Lion, a ship, brought captured Africans to Old Point Comfort, Virginia. That's now called Hampton, Virginia, and is home of a historically black college or university, ironically. That was the first ship to bring captive Africans to America that we know of. The names we know are Anthony and his wife Isabel. In 1624 or so to 1625, they had a son, William Tucker. William was the first African-American born that was recorded in recorded history. Now, these weren't the first Africans to come to this land. That we know. But these were the first to come in chains and to be forced to stay. Now, New York City, which is where I'm from, first got enslaved Africans arriving in 1626. Now, people don't often think of New York City when they think of slavery. They tend to think of the American South. But enslavement was a nationwide problem. So the first enslaved Africans arrived in 1626 by the Dutch, but they were from the colony of Angola. So that was Portuguese. So the names we know, Paulo Angola, Groot Manuel, so that means Big Manuel, Klein Manuel, that means Little Manuel, Manuel de Gerrit de Roos, Simon Congo, Anthony Portuguese, Gracia, Peter Sao Tome, Jan Francisco, Klein Anthony, and Jan Fort Orange. So these were the first enslaved Africans to arrive in New York City in 1626. So we know 1619 started the bloody history of enslavement in America. But we know that that history dates back further because we found 1441. And we know that it wasn't just America, because those first Berber people, those first Amazigh people were captured and taken to Portugal. And we know what followed. We know what happened after all of this started. There's a word for it. That word is the Maafa. Maafa. Now that's a Kiswahili word, and it means great disaster, horrific tragedy, the African Holocaust, the slave trade. Thank you for listening to this bonus episode. And from time to time, when the topic gets too big, we may break off into a part 2 or a bonus episode just to give you a little more, because there's so much more to give. So as we think of those enslaved Africans, the first ones being shipped out of modern day Mauritania and being sent to Portugal, let's remember them. And let's remember the enslaved who were shipped out in the name of Spain. Let's remember the enslaved who were shipped out by the Spanish government to the Caribbean and to South America. And those who were sent here to America, Anthony and Isabel and their son William. And let's remember the names of those who came from the colony of Angola: Paulo Angola, Groot Manuel, Klein Manuel, Manuel de Gerrit de Roos, Simon Congo, Anthony Portuguese, Gracia, Peter Santome, Jan Francisco, Klein Anthony, and Jan Fort Orange. The Ma'afa happened, but we remember.